Hey, everybody. Audio scene. There we go. Hello. There we go. We have audio now. Thanks, Queen Bean. Yeah, what I was saying before I got interrupted by lack of audio is, welcome to the late night show. We're doing Consortium Chronicles. So I'm going to select a book and then I'll slowly read through it. And we're going to try to do some of the classics. And I've never read The Count of Monte Cristo. And we'll have a nice little cozy stream tonight. Hey, Mildly. Thanks for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. And same with you, Queen Bean. 07 to you all. So, we're going to begin. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Volume 1. Chapter 1. Marseille, the Arrival. On the 24th of February, 1815, the lookout at Notre Dame de la Garde signaled the three masters, the Farron from Cimarron, Trieste, and Napoli. As usual, a pilot put off immediately and rounding the Chateau d'If, got on board the vessel between Cape Morgue and Rion Island. Immediately, and according to custom, the ramparts of Fort Saint Jean were covered with spectators. It is always an event at Marseille for a ship to come into port, especially when this ship, like the Farron, has been built, rigged, and laden at the old Fosse docks, and belongs to an owner of the city. The ship drew on and had safely passed the strait, which some volcanic shock has made between the Castellarain and Jaros Islands. I had doubts. I had double pomeg and approached the hard. 1 second here. We'll just do this. We get comfy. 1 second here. Getting through the first paragraph. It had doubled pomeg and approached the harbor under topsail, jib, and spanker, but slowly and sedately, that the idlers, with that instinct which the forerunner of evil, asked one another what misfortune could have happened on board. However, those experienced in navigation saw it plainly, that if any accident had occurred, it was not the vessel herself, for she bore down with all the evidence of being skillfully handled. The anchor, a cock build, and jig boom guys already eased off, and standing with the side of the pilot, who was steering the Farron towards the narrow entrance of the inner port, was a young man who, with active and vigilant eye, watched every motion of the ship and repeated each direction of the pilot. This vague disquietude which prevailed among the spectators had so much affected one of the crowd that he did not await the arrival of the vessel in the harbor, but jumping into a small skiff, desired to be pulled alongside the Farron, which he reached as she rounded La Reservoir Basin. When the young man on board saw this person approach, he left his station by the pilot and, hat in hand, leaned over the ship's bulwarks. He was a fine, tall, slim young fellow of 18 or 20, with black eyes and hair as dark as ravens' wings, and his whole appearance bespoke that calmness and resolution peculiar to men accustomed to their cradle to contend with danger. "Ah, it's you, Dante?" cried the man of the skip. "What's the matter, and why have you such an air of sadness aboard?" "Ah, great misfortune, M. Morrel," replied the young man. "A great misfortune for me especially. Oft Civita Vecchia. We lost our brave Captain Leclerc. Captain Leclerc." "And the cargo?" inquired the owner eagerly. "All safe, M. Morrel, and I think you will be satisfied on that head. But poor Captain Leclerc." "What happened to him?" asked the owner, with an air of considerable resignation. "What happened to the worthy captain?" "He died." "Fell into the sea?" "No, sir. He died of brain fever in dreadful agony." Then turning to his crew, he said, "Bear a hand there and take in sail." All hands obeyed, and at once the 8 or 10 seamen who composed the crew sprang to their respective stations at the spanker brails and outhaul, topsail sheets and halyards, the jib downhaul, and the topsail crew lines and blunt lines. The young sailor gave a look to see his orders were promptly and accurately obeyed, and then turned again to the owner. "And how did this misfortune occur?" inquired the latter, resuming the uninterrupted conversation. "Alas, sir, in the most unexpected manner. After a long talk with the harbor master, Captain Leclerc left Napoli greatly disturbed in the mind. In 24 hours he was attacked by a fever and died 3 days after. We performed the usual burial service, and he is at rest, sewn up in the hammock with 36-pound shot at his head and his heels, off El Gigolo Island. We bring to his widow his sword and his cross of honor. It was well worth while, truly," added the young man with a melancholy smile, "to make war against the English for 10 years and to die at his bed, at last like everyone else." "Why, you see, Edmund," replied the owner, who appeared more comforted at every moment, "we are all mortal, and the old must make way for the young. If not, why? There would be no promotion. And since you assure me that the cargo is safe and sound, M. Morrel, take my word for it, and I advise you not to take 25,000 francs for profit of the voyage." Then, as they were just passing the round tower, the young man shouted, "Stand by the lower topsail and jib, brail up the spanker." The order was executed promptly, as it would be on board a man of war. "Let go and clew up." At this last command, all the sails were lowered, and the vessel moved imperceptibly onwards. "Now, if you will come on board, M. Morrel," said Dantes, observing the owner's impatience, "here is your supercargo, M. Danglars, coming out of his cabin, who will furnish you with every particular. As for me, I must look after the anchoring and dress the ship for morning. The owner did not wait for the second invitation. He seized a rope which Dante flung to him, and with activity that would have done credit to a sailor, climbed up the side of the ship, while the young man, going for his task, left the conversation to Danglars, who now came towards the owner. He was a man of 25 or 26 years, of unpossessing countenance, obsequious, oh my god, I can't even say this word, guys, obsequences to his superiors, insolent to his insubordinates, or insolent to his subordinates, and this, in addition to his position as responsible agent on board, which is always obnoxious to the sailors, made him as much disliked by the crew as Edmond Dante was beloved by them. Well, M. Morels, said Danglars, you have heard of the misfortune that has befallen us, yes? Yes, poor Captain Leclerc. He was brave and an honest man, and a first-rate seaman, one who had seen long honorable service. As become a man charged with the interest of the house, so important as the Morel and Son, replied Danglars. But, replied the owner, glancing at Dante, who was watching the anchoring of his vessel, it seems to me that a sailor needs not to be old, as you say, Danglars, to understand his business, for our friend Edmund seems to understand it thoroughly, and not to require instruction from anyone. Yes, said Danglars, darting to Edmund a look gleaming with hate. Yes, he is young and youthful. Yes, he is young, and youth is invariably self-confident. Scarcely was the captain's breath out of his body when he assumed the command without consulting anyone, and he caused us to lose a day and a half at the island of Elba, instead of making for the Marseille direct. As to taking command of the vessel, replied Morel, that was his duty as captain's mate. As to losing the day and a half on the island of Elba, he was wrong, unless the vessel needed repairs. The vessel was in good condition, as am I, and as I hope you are, M. Morel. And this day and a half was lost from pure whim, for a pleasure of going ashore and nothing else. Dantes, said the ship owner, turning to the young man, come this way. In a moment, sir, answered Dantes, and I'm with you. And then the crew, calling to the crew, he said, let's go. The anchor was dropped instantly, and the chain ran rattling down the porthole. Dantes continued at his post in spite of the presence of the plot until this maneuver was completed, and then he added, half-mast the colors and square the yards. You see, said Danglars, he fancies himself a captain already, upon my word. And so, in fact, he is, said the owner. Accept your signature and your partner's, Emerald. And why should he not have this? Asked the owner. He is young, it's true, but seems to me through a seaman and full of experience. A cloud passed over Danglars' brow. Your pardon, Emerald, said Dantes, approaching. The vessel now rides at the anchor, and I am at your service. You hailed me, I think? Danglars repeated a step or two. I wished to inquire why you stopped at the Isle of Elba. I don't know, sir. It was to fulfill the last instruction of Captain Leclerc, who, when dying, gave me a packet for Marshal Bertrand. Then did you see him on? Did you see him, Elman? Then did you see him, Elman? Oh my God. Then did you see him, Edmund? Who? The Marshal. Yes. Morel looked around, and then, drawing Dante on one side, he suddenly said, "And how was the emperor?" "Well, very well. As far as I could judge from the sight of him." "You saw the emperor then?" "He entered the marshal's apartment while I was there." "And you spoke to him?" "Why, it was he who spoke to me, sir," Dantes said with a smile. "And what did he say to you?" "Asked me questions about the vessel, the time she left Marseille, the course she had taken, and what was her cargo. I believe if she had not been laden and I had been her master, he would have bought her. But I told him I was only a mate, and that she belonged to the firm of Morel and Son." "Ah, yes," he said. "I know them. The Morels have been ship owners from father to son, and there was a Morel who served the same regiment with me when I was in the garrison at Valence." "Pardieu, that is true," cried the owner, greatly delighted. "And that was Policar Morel, my uncle, who afterward a captain. Dante, you must tell my uncle that the emperor remembered him, and you will see it will bring tears to the old soldier's eyes. Come, come," he continued, patting Edmund's shoulder kindly. "You did the right thing, Dante, to follow the Captain Leclerc's instructions and touch at Elba. Although, if it were known that you had conveyed a packet to the marshal and conversed with the emperor, it might bring you into trouble." "How could that bring me into trouble, sir?" asked Dante. "For I did not even know what I was the bearer, and the emperor merely made such inquiries as he would of the first comer. But pardon me, here are the health officers and custom inspectors coming alongside." And the young man went to the gangway. As he departed, the danglers approached and said, "Well, it appears that he has given you satisfactory reasons for his landing at Porto Ferrero." "Yes, most satisfactory, my dear danglers." "Well, so much the better," said the supercargo. "For it is not pleasant to think that a comrade has not done his duty." "Dante has done his," replied the owner, "and that is not saying much. It was Captain Leclerc who gave the orders for this delay." Talking of the Captain Leclerc, has not Dante given you a letter for him?" "To me? No. Was there one?" "I believe that beside the packet, Captain Leclerc confided a letter to his care." "Of what packet are you speaking, danglers?" "Why, that which Dante left at Port Ferrero." "How do you know he had left a packet at Port Ferrero?" Danglers turned very red. "I was passing close to the door of the captain's cabin, which was half open, and I saw him give a packet and a letter to Dante's." "He did not speak of it to me," replied the ship owner. "But if there was any letter, he will give it to me." Danglers reflected on the moment. Then, "M. Morel, I beg of you not to say a word to Dante on the subject. I may have been mistaken." At this moment, the young man returned. Danglers withdrew. "Well, my dear Dante, are you free?" inquired the owner. "Yes, sir." "You would have not been long detained." "No, I gave the custom house officers a copy of our bill of lading, and as to the other papers, they sent a man off with the pilot, to whom I gave them." "Then you have nothing more to do here?" "No, everything is all right now." "Then you can come with me and dine." "I really must ask you to excuse me, Emerald. My first visit is due to my father, though I am not the least grateful for the honor you have done me." "Right. Dante's. Quite right. I will always knew you were a good son. And, inquired Dante's with some hesitation, do you know how my father is? Well, I believe, my dear Edmund, though I have not seen him lately, yes, he likes to keep to himself, shut in his little room. That proves, at least, that he has wanted nothing during your absence. Dante smiles. My father's proud, sir, and if he had not a meal left, I doubt if he would have asked anything from anyone except from heaven. Well, then, after this first visit has been made, we shall count on you. I must again excuse myself, Emerald, for after this first visit has been paid, I have another which I am most anxious to pay. True, Dante. I forgot that there was the Catalans, someone who you the Catalans, someone who expects you no less impatiently than your father, the lovely Mercedes. Dante blushed. Aha, said the ship owner. I am not the least surprised, for she has been to me 3 times inquiring if there were any news of the Farron Peste. Edmund, you have a very handsome mistress. She is not my mistress, replied the young sailor gravely. She's my betrothed. Sometimes one and the same thing, said Morel with a smile. Not with us, sir, replied Dante. Well, well, my dear Edmund, continue the owner. Don't let me detain you. You have managed my affairs so well that I ought to allow you all the time you require on your own. Do you want any money? No, sir. I have all my pay to take, nearly 3 months' wages. You are a careful fellow, Edmund. Say I have poor father, sir. Yes, yes, I know how good a son you are. So now hasten away to see your father. I have a son too, and I should be very wroth with those detained him from me after 3 months of voyage. Then I have your leave, sir? Yes. If you have nothing more to say to me. Nothing? Captain Leclerc did not, before he died, give you a letter for me? He was unable to write, sir. But that reminds me, I must ask your leave of absence for some days. To get married? Yes. First, and then go to Paris. Very well. Take what time you require, Dante. It will take quite 6 weeks to unload the cargo, and we cannot get you ready for sea until 3 months after that. Only be back in 3 months for the Farron. Added the owner, patting the young sailor on the back. Cannot sail without her captain. Without her captain? Cried Dante, his eyes sparkling with animation. Pray mind what you say, for you are touching on the most secret wish of my heart. It is really your intention to make me captain of the Farron? If I were the sole owner, I would shake your hands now, my dear Dante, and we will call it settled. But I have a partner, and you know the Italian proverb, Chiha campanago ha padro. How do we pronounce that, chat? I'm not an Italian speaker. Let's see here.
Chi accompagno a padrone.
Wow. Chi ha comprando ha pradone. Chi ha, oh, it's a K sound. Chi ha caprango ha pradonde. Okay. Where were we here? There we go. He who has a partner has a master, but the thing is at least half done. You have 1 out of 2 votes. Rely on me to procure the other one, and I'll do my best. Ah, Emerald, exclaimed the young seaman with tears in his eyes, grasping at the owner's hand. Emerald, I thank you in the name of my father and of Mercedes. That's all right, Edmund. There's a providence that watches over the deserving. Go to your father, go see Mercedes, and afterward come to me. Shall I row you ashore? No, thank you. I shall remain and look over the accounts with the Danglers. Have you been satisfied with him in the voyage? That is according to the sense you can attach a question, sir. Do you mean he's a good comrade? No, for I think he's never liked me since the day I was... No, for I think he never liked me since the day when I was silly enough, after a little quarrel we had, to propose him to stop for 10 minutes at the island of Monte Cristo to settle the dispute. A proposition which I was wrong to suggest, and he quite right to refuse, if you mean as responsible agent when you ask the question. I believe there is nothing to say against him, and that you will be content with the way in which he has performed his duties. But tell me, Dante, if you had commanded the Farron, should you be glad to see the Danglers remain? Captain or mate, Emerald, I shall always have the greatest respect for those who possess the owner's confidence. That's right, Dante. I see you are a thoroughly good fellow, and will detain you no longer. Go, I see how impatient you are. Then I have leave? Go, I tell you. May I have use of your skiff? Certainly. Then, for the present, Emerald, farewell, and 1,000 thanks. I hope to see you again, my dear Edmund, and good luck to you. The young sailor jumped into the skiff and sat down the stern sheets, with order he be put ashore at La Cabiniere. Canonbert. The 2 oarsmen bent to their work, and the little boat glided away as rapidly as possible in midst of thousands of vessels that would choke up the narrow way which leads between the 2 rows of ships from the mouth of the harbor to the Quai d'Orleans. The ship owner smiling followed him with his eyes until he saw him spring out of the quay and disappear amongst the throng, which from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night swarms in famous streets of La Canberry, a street of which the modern Phoceans are so proud that they say with all the gravity in the world and with that accent which gives much character to what is said, if Paris had La Canabrie, if Paris had La Canabrie, Paris would be the second Marseille. On turning round, the owner said Danglers behind him, apparently awaiting orders, but in reality also watching the young sailor. But there was a great difference in the expression of the 2 men who thus followed the movements of Edmond Dantes. Chapter 2. Father and Son. We will leave the Danglers struggling with the demon of hatred, and endeavoring to insinuate in the ear of the ship owner some evil suspicions against the comrade, and follow Dante, who, after traversed La Canabrie, took the Rue de Noël and enters a small house. On the left of the Allée de Mayenne, rapidly ascends 4 flights of a dark staircase, holding the baluster with one hand, with what while with the other he repressed the beating of his heart and paused before a half-open door from which he could see the whole small room. This room was occupied by Dante's father. The news of the arrival of the Pharaon had not yet reached the old man, who, mounted on a chair, was amusing himself by training and trembling hands of the nostrums and the sprays of the clematis that clambered over the trellis of his window. Suddenly, he felt an arm throw over his body, and a well-known voice behind him exclaimed, "Father, dear father." The old man uttered a cry and turned round. Then, seeing his son, he fell into his arms, pale and trembling. "What ails you, my dearest father? Are you ill?" inquired the young man, to much alarm. "No, no, my dear Emden. My boy, my son, no. But I did not expect you. Enjoy the surprise of seeing you suddenly. Ah, I feel as if I were going to die. Come, come, cheer up, my dear father. 'Tis I, really I. They say joy never hurts, and so I came to you without a warning. Come now, do smile instead of looking at me so solemnly. Here I am back again, and we are going to be happy. Yes, yes, my boy, we will, so we will," replied the old man. "But how shall we be happy? Shall you never leave me again? Come, tell me all the good fortune that has befallen you." "God forgive me," said the young man, "for rejoicing at happiness derived from the misery of others. But heaven knows I did not seek the good fortune. It happened, and I cannot pretend to lament it. The good Captain Leclerc is dead, father, and it is probable that, with the aid of M. Morel, I shall have his place. Do you understand, father? Only imagine me a captain at 20, with 100 louis pay, and a share in its profits. Is this not more than a poor sailor like me could hope for?" "Yes, my dear boy," replied the old man, "it is very fortunate." "Well, then, with the first money I touched, I mean, you have a small house, with a garden in which to plant clematis, nostrums, honeysuckles. But what ails you, father? Are you not well?" "'Tis nothing, nothing. It should pass." And he said so the old man's strength failed him, and he fell backwards. "Come, come," said the young man. "A glass of wine, father, it will revive you. Where do you keep the wine?" "No, no, no, thanks. You need not look for it. I do not want it," said the old man. "Yes, yes, father, tell me where it is." And he opened the 2 or 3 cupboards. "It is no use," said the old man. There is no wine." "What? No wine?" said Dantes, turning pale and looking alternately in the hollow cheeks of the man and the empty cupboards. "What, no wine? Have you wanted money, father?" "I have wanted nothing now that I have you," said the old man. "Yet," stammered Dante, wiping perspiration off his brow, "yet I gave you 200 francs when I left 3 months ago." Yes, yes, Edmund, that is true. But you forgot at the time a little debt to our neighbor, Caderousse. He reminded me of it, telling me if I did not pay for you, he would be paid by M. Morel, and you see, lest he might do you injury. Well, why I paid him? But, Dante cried, it was 140 francs I owed Caderousse. Yes, stammered the old man. And you paid him out of the 200 francs I left you? The old man nodded. But, cried Dante, it was 140 francs? Oh, wait, whoa. And yes, stammered the old man. And you paid him out of the 200 francs I left you? He nodded. So that you have lived for 3 months on 60 francs, muttered Edmund. You know how little I require, said the old man. Heaven pardon me, cried Edmund, falling on his knees before his father. What are you doing? You wounded me to the heart. Never mind it, for I see you once more, said the old man. And now it's all over. Everything is all right again. Yes, here I am, said the young man, with a promising future and little money. Here, father, here. He said, take this, take it, and send something immediately. He emptied his pocket on the table with contents of a dozen gold pieces, 5 or 6 francs, and some smaller coins. The countenance of the old Dante's brightened. Whom does this belong to? He inquired. To me, to you, to us. Take it. Buy some provisions. Be happy, and tomorrow we shall have more. Gently, gently, said the old man with a smile, and by your leave I will use your purse moderately. For they would say, if they saw me buy too many things at a time, that I have been obliged to await your return in order to purchase them. Do as you please, but first of all, pray have a servant, father. I will not have you left alone so long. I have some smuggled coffee and most capital tobacco in a small chest in the hold, which you shall have tomorrow. But hush, here comes someone. 'Tis Caderousse, who has heard of your arrival and no doubt comes to congratulate you on your fortunate return. Ah, lips that say one thing while heart thinks another, murmured Edmund. But never mind. He is a neighbor who has done us a service on time, so he's welcome. Edmund paused. The black and bearded head of Caderousse appeared in the door. He was a man of 25 or 6, held a piece of cloth which had been tailored. He held a piece of cloth which, being a tailor, he was about to make into a coat lining. What is it? What is it, you? Edmund, back again, he said, with a broad Marseille accent and a grin displaying his ivory white teeth. Yes, as you see, neighbored Caderousse, and ready to be agreeable with you in any and every way, replied Dante, but ill concealing his coldness under his cloak of civility. Thanks. But fortunately, I do not want for anything, and it chances that at times there's others who have need of me. Dante just made gestures. I do not allude to you, my boy. No. I lent you money and you returned it. That is like good neighbors, and we are quits. We are never quits with those who oblige us, was Dante replied. For when we do not owe them money, we owe them gratitude. What's the use of mentioning that? What is done is done. Let us talk of your happy return, my boy. I have gone on the quay to match the piece of Mudbury cloth. And when I met my friend Danglars, you at Marseille? Yes, says he. I thought you were at I thought you were at the Smyrna. I was, but I'm back again. And where is dear boy, our little Edmund? Why, with his father's, replied Danglars. And so I came, added Caderousse, as fast as I could to have the pleasure of shaking hands with a friend. Worthy Caderousse, said the old man, he is so much attached to us. Yes, to be sure I am. I love and esteem you, because honest folk are so rare. But it seems you have come back rich, my boy, continued the tailor, looking askance at his handful of gold and silver which Dante has thrown on the table. The young man, remarkably the greedy glance which shone in his dark eyes of his neighbor. He said negligently, this money is not mine. I was expressing to my father the fears that he had wanted many things in my absence, and to convince me he emptied his purse on the table. Come, father, asked Dante. Put the money back in your box unless the neighbor Cadrousse wants anything, and in that case, it is at his service. No, my boy, no, Cadrousse said. I am not in any want, thank God. My living is suited to my means. Keep your money. Keep it. I say one never has too much. But at the same time, my boy, I am as much obliged by your offer as if I took advantage by it. I am as much obliged by your offer as if I took advantage of it. It was an offer of goodwill, said Dante. No doubt, my boy, no doubt. Well, you stand well with M. Morel, I hear. You insinuating dog, you. M. Morel has always been exceedingly kind to me, said Dante. Then you were wrong to refuse to dine with him. What? Did you refuse to dine with him? Said old Dantes. And did he invite you to dine? Yes, my dear father, replied Edmund, smiling at his father's astonishment at the excessive honor paid to his son. And why did you refuse, my son? Inquired the old man. That I might sooner see you again, my dear father, replied the young man. I am most anxious to see you, but it must have vexed Mr. Morel, a good, worthy man, said Cadrousse. And when you were looking forward to being captain, it was wrong to annoy the owner. But I explained to him the cause of my refusal, replied Dante, and he hopefully understood it. Yes, but to be a captain, one must do a little flattery to one's patrons. I hope to be captain without that, said Dante. So much the better, so much the better. Nothing will give me great pleasure to all your old friends, and I know one down there behind the St. Nicholas Cathedral who will not be sorry to hear it. Mercedes? Said the old man. Yes, my dear father, with your permission, now I have seen you, and you know well, and have all you require, I will ask your consent to go and pay visit to the Catalans. Go, my dear boy, said Dante. Said old Dante, and heavens bless you in your wife. And heavens bless you in your wife, as it has blessed me in my son. His wife? Said Cadrousse. Why, how fast you go on, Father Dantes. She's not his wife yet, as it seems to me. No, but according to all the probability, she will be soon, replied Edmund. Yes, yes, said Cadrousse. But you were right to return as soon as possible, my boy. And why? Because Mercedes is a very fine girl, and fine girls never lack followers. She's particularly has them by the dozens. Really, answered Edmund, with a smile in which he traces the slight uneasiness. Ah, yes, continued Cadrousse, and capital offers too. But you know, you'll be captain. The scandal. Oh my God. And capital offers too. But you know, you'll be captain, and who would refuse you then? Meaning to say, replied Dante, with a smile which but ill concealed his trouble, that if I were not a captain, said Cadrousse, shaking his head. Come, come, said the sailor. I have a better opinion than you of women in general, and of Mercedes in particular. I am certain that, captain or not, she will remain faithful to me. So much the better, said Cadrousse. When one is going to be married, there is nothing like implicit confidence. But never mind that, my boy. Go and announce your arrival. Let her know all your hopes and prospects. I will go directly, was Edmund's reply, and embracing his father and nodding to Cadrousse, and he left the apartment. Cadrousse lingered for a moment, and then taking leave of old Dante, he went downstairs to rejoin Danglars, who awaited him at the corner of Rue Senac. Well, said Danglars, did you see him? I have just left him, answered Caderousse. Did he allure to his hopes of being captain? He spoke of it as if it was already decided. Indeed, said Danglars, he is in too much of a hurry, it appears to me. Why, it seems Mr. Morrel has promised him the thing, so he's quite elated about it. Why, yes, he is actually insolent over the matter. He has already offered me his patronage as if he were to a grand personage, and proffered me a loan of money as though he was a banker. Which you refused? Most assuredly, although I might easily have accepted it, for was I who put the hands of first silver he ever earned. But now Mr. Dantes has no longer any occasion for my assistance. He is about to become captain. Pooh, said Danglars, he is not one yet. Ma foi. It will be as well if he is not, answered Caderousse. For if he should be, there will really no speaking to him. If we choose, replied Danglars, he will remain what he is, and perhaps become even less than he is. What do you mean? Nothing. I was speaking to myself, and he is still in love with the Catalan, over head and ears. But unless I am much mistaken, there will be a storm in that quarter. Explain yourself. Why should I? It is more important than you think, perhaps. You do not like the Dantes? I never like upstarts. Then tell me all you know about the Catalan. I know nothing for certain, only that I have seen things which induce me to believe, as I told you, that the future captain will find some annoyance in the vicinity of the Vieille infirmaries. What have you seen? Come, tell me. Well, every time I've seen Mercedes come into the city, she's accompanied by a tall, strapping, black-eyed Catalan with red complexion, brown skin, fierce air, whom she calls cousin. Really? And you think this cousin pays her attention? Only suppose so. What else can a strapping chap over 21 mean with a fine wench of 17? What else could it be? They're first cousins. Maybe second. He's right. Oh my God. All right. And you say Dante's gone to the Catalans? He went down before I came. Let us go the same way. We will stop at La Reservoir and get a drink of a glass of La Marague whilst we wait for news. Come along, said Caderousse. But you pay the score. Of course, said Danglars. And quickly to the designated place, they called for a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Pierre Famphile. Hey, Nicalia, welcome. Pierre Pamphile had seen Dantes pass not 10 minutes before, and assured that he was at the Catalans, they sat down under the budding foliage of the plants and the sycamores, in the branches of which birds were singing their welcome to one another of the first days of spring. Chapter 3: The Catalans. Beyond a bare, weather-worn wall, 100 paces from the spot where the 2 friends sat looking and listening as they drank their wine, was the village of the Catalans. Long ago, this mysterious colony quitted Spain and settled on the tongue of the land which it is today. Whence it came no one knew, and it spoke an unknown tongue. One of its chiefs, who understood Provençal, begged the commune of Marseille to give them this bare and barren promontory where, like the sailors of old, they had run their boats ashore. This request was granted after a 3 month afterward. Around the 12th or 15 small vessels which had brought these gypsies of the sea, a small village sprang up. This village, constructed of a singular and picturesque manner, half Moorish, half Spanish, it still remains, and is inhabitable by the descendants of the first comers, who speak the language of their fathers. For 3 or 4 centuries they have remained upon the small promontory, on which they have settled like a flight of seabirds, without mixing with the Marseille population, intermarrying and preserving the original customs and the costume of their mother country, and preserved its language. Our readers will follow us along the only street of this little village, and enter with us one of the houses, which is sunburned to a beautiful dry leaf color peculiar to the buildings of this country, and within coated with whitewash like a Spanish posada. A young beautiful girl with hair black as jet, her eyes as velvety as gazelles, was leaning with her back against the wainscot, rubbing her slender, delicately molded fingers a bunch of heath blossoms, the flowers of which she was picking off and strewing on the floor, her arms bare to the elbows, brown and mottled after those of the Arlesian Venus, moved with a kind of restless impatience, and she tapped the earth with her arched and supple foot, so as to display the pure and full shape of her well-turned legs in its red cotton, gray, and blue clocked stocking. Scandalous. Wow. At 3 paces from her, seated in the chair which he balanced on 2 legs, leaning his elbow on old worm-eaten tables, was a tall young man of 20 or 22, who was looking at her with an air in which vexation and uneasiness were mingled. He questioned her with his eyes, but firmly and steady gaze of the young woman controlled his look. "You see, Mercedes," said the young man, "here is Easter come round again. Tell me, is this the moment for a wedding? I have answered you 100 times, Ferdinand. And really, you must be very stupid to ask me again." "Well, repeat it, I beg of you, that I may last believe it. Tell me for the 100th time that you refuse my love, which your mothers sanctioned. Make me understand once for all that you are trifling with my happiness, that my life or death is nothing to you. Ah, to have dreamed for 10 years of being your husband, Mercedes, and to lose that hope, which was only stay of my existence." "At least it was not I who encouraged you in that hope, Ferdinand," replied Mercedes. "You cannot reproach me with the slightest coquetry. You cannot reproach me with the slightest coquetry. I have always said to you, I love you as a brother. But do not ask me for more than sisterly affection, for my heart is another's. Is not this true, Ferdinand?" "Yes, this is very true, Mercedes," replied the young man. "Yes, you have been cruelly frank with me, but do you forget that it is among the Catalans' sacred law to intermarry?" Listen, this whole family is about Wincest. Jeez. "You mistake, Ferdinand. It is not a law, but merely a custom, and I pray to you, do not cite the customs in your favor. You include in conscription, Ferdinand, and are only at liberty on sufferance, liable at any moment to be called upon to take up arms. Once a soldier, what would you do with me? A poor orphan, forlorn, without fortune, with nothing but a half-ruined hut and a few ragged nets and a miserable inheritance left by my father to my mother and by my mother to me. She has been dead a year, and you know, Ferdinand, I have subsided almost entirely on public charity. Sometimes you pretend I am useful to you, and that is an excuse to share with me the produce of your fishing, and I accept it, Ferdinand, because you are the son of my father's brother, because we were brought up together, and still more because it would give you so much pain if I refused. But I feel very deeply that this fish which I go and sell, and with the produce of which I buy the flax I spin, I feel very keenly, Ferdinand, that this is charity. Wow. If I were, Mercedes, poor and lone as you were, you suit me as well as the daughter of the first ship owner or the richest banker of Marseille. What do such as we desire but a good wife and a careful housekeeper? And where can I look for these better than you? Ferdinand, answered Mercedes, shaking her head. A woman becomes a bad manager, and who shall say she will remain an honest woman when she loves another man better than her husband? Rest content with my friendship, for I say once more, that is all I can promise, and I will promise no more than I can bestow. I understand, replied Ferdinand. You can endure your own wretchedness patiently, but you are afraid to share mine. Well, Mercedes, beloved by you, I would tempt fortune. You would bring me good luck, and I shall become rich. I could extend my occupation as a fisherman, might get a place of a clerk in a warehouse, and become a dealer myself. You could not do such a thing, Ferdinand. You are a soldier, and if you remain in Catalan, it is because there is no war. So remain a fisherman and contend with my friendship, and as I can give you no more. Well, I will do better, Mercedes. I will be a sailor instead of a costume of our fathers, which you despise. I will wear a varnished hat, a striped shirt, and a blue jacket with an anchor on the button. Would that not dress please you? What do you mean? Asked Mercedes with an angry glance. What do you mean? I do not understand you. I mean, Mercedes, that you are thus harsh and cruel with me because you are expecting someone who is thus attired. But perhaps he whom you await is inconstant, or if he is not, the sea is so to him. Ferdinand, cried Mercedes, I believe you are good-hearted. I was mistaken, Ferdinand. You are wicked to call your aid jealousy and the anger of God. Yes, I will not deny it. I do await and I do love him whom you speak. And if he does not return, instead of accusing him of inconstancy, which you insinuate, I will tell you he died loving me and only me. The young girl made a gesture of rage. I understand you, Ferdinand. You will not be revenged on him because I do not love you. You would cross your Catalan knife with his dirk. What end would that answer? To lose my friendship if he were conquered? To see that friendship change into hate if you were the victor? Believe me, to seek a quarrel with a man is a bad method of pleasing the woman who he loves. No, Ferdinand, you will not thus give way to evil thoughts. Unable to have me as your wife, you will content yourself with having me as your friend and sister. And besides, she added, her eyes troubled and moistened with tears, wait, Ferdinand. You said just now that the sea was treacherous, and he has been gone for 4 months. And during these 4 months, there has been terrible storms. Ferdinand has made no reply, nor did he attempt to check the tears which flowed down the cheeks of Mercedes, although for each of these tears he would have shed his heart's blood. But these tears flowed for another. He arose, paced a while up and down the hut, and then, suddenly stopping before Mercedes, with his eyes glowing and his hands clenched, "Say, Mercedes," he said, "once and for all, is this your final determination?" "I love Edmond Dantes," the young girl calmly replied, "and none but Edmond Dantes shall ever be my husband." "And you will always love him?" "As long as I live." Ferdinand let fall his head like a defeated man, heaved a sigh that was like a groan, and then suddenly he looked her face in full, with clenched teeth, expanded nostrils, said, "But if he is dead? If he is dead, I shall die too. If he has forgotten you." "Mercedes," called a joyous voice without. "Mercedes!" "Ah," exclaimed the young girl, blushing with delight and fairly leaping in excess of love. "You see, he has not forgotten me, for he is here." Rushing towards the door, she opened it, saying, "Here, Edmund, I am here." Ferdinand, pale and trembling, drew back like a traveler at a sight of a serpent, and fell into a chair beside him. Edmund and Mercedes clasped in each other's arms. The burning Marseille sun, which shot into the room through the open door, covered them with a flood of light. At first, they saw nothing around them. Their intense happiness isolated them from the rest of the world, and they only spoke in broken words, which are tokens of joy so extreme that they seem rather the expression of sorrow. Suddenly Edmund saw a gloomy, pale, and threatening countenance of Ferdinand, and it was defined in the shadow by the movement for which he could scarcely account himself. The young Catalan placed his hand on his knife belt. "Ah, your pardon," says Dantes, frowning in his turn. "I did not perceive that there was 3 of us." Then turning to Mercedes, he inquired, "Who is this gentleman?" "One who will be your best friend, Dantes, for he is my friend, my cousin, my brother. It is Ferdinand, the man whom, after you, Edmund, I love best in the world. Don't you remember him?" "Ah, yes," said Dante. Without relinquishing Mercedes, he without relinquishing Mercedes' hand clasped in one of his own, he extended the other one with cordial air. But Ferdinand, instead of responding this amicable gesture, remained mute and trembling. Edmund then cast his eyes scrutinizing at the agitated and embarrassed Mercedes, and then again at the gloomy and menacing Ferdinand. This look told him all, and his anger waxed and hot. "I did not know when I came with such haste to you that I would meet an enemy here." "An enemy!" cried Mercedes with an angry look at her cousin. "An enemy in my house, do say, Edmund. If I believed that, I would place my arm under yours and go with to Marseille, leaving this house to return not more." Ferdinand's eyes darted lightning. "And should any misfortune occur to you, dear Edmund, she continued, with the same calmness which provided Ferdinand that young girl had read the very innermost depths of his sinister thoughts. If misfortune should occur to you, I would ascend to the highest point of Cape de Margot and cast myself headlong from it. Ferdinand became deathly pale. But you are deceived, Edmund, she continued. You have no enemy here. There is no one but Ferdinand, my brother, who you just grasped your hand as a devoted friend. And at these words, the young girl fixed her imperious look on the Catalan, who, as if fantasized by it, And at these words, the young girl fixed her imperious look on the Catalan, who, as if fascinated by it, came slowly towards Edmund and offered him his hand. His hatred, like a powerless through furious wave, was broken against the strong ascendancy which Mercedes exercised over him. Scarcely, however, he touched Edmund's hand when he felt he had done all he could do, and rushed hastily out of the home. Yeah, this is a heated conversation. Oh, he exclaimed, running furiously and tearing his hair. Oh, who will deliver me from this man? Wretched, wretched am I. Hallo, Catalan, hallo, Ferdinand. Where are you running to? Exclaimed a voice. The young man stopped suddenly, looked around, and perceived Cade Rousseau sitting at a table with Danglars. Under the arbor. Well, said Cade Rousseau, why don't you come? Are you really in such a hurry that you have no time to pass the day with your friends? Particularly when they have a full bottle before them, added Danglars. Ferdinand looked at them both with stupefied air, but did not say a word. He seems besotted. Besotted? He seems besotted, said Danglars, pushing Cade Rousseau with his knee. Are we mistaken? And is Dante's triumph in spite of all we have believed? Why, we must inquire about that, was Cade Rousseau's reply. And turning towards the young man, said, well, Catalan, can you make up your mind? Ferdinand wiped away his perspiration, steaming from his brow, slowly entered the arbor, whose shade seems to restore somewhat calmness of his senses, and whose coolness somewhat of a refreshment of his exhausted body. Good day, he said. You called me, didn't you? And he fell rather than sat down onto one of the seats that surround the table. I called you because you were running like a madman, and I was afraid you would throw yourself into the sea, said Cade Rousseau, laughing. Why, when a man has friends, they are not only to offer them a glass of wine, but moreover, to prevent him from swallowing 3 or 4 pints of water unnecessarily. Ferdinand gave a groan, which resembled a sob, dropping his head towards his hands, his elbows leaning on the table. Well, Ferdinand, I must say, said Cade Rousseau, beginning this conversation with that brutality of the common people in which curiosity destroys all diplomacy, you look uncommonly like a rejected lover. He burst into a hoarse laugh. Bah, said Danglars. A lad of his make was not born to be unhappy in love. You're laughing at him, Cade Rousseau. No, he replied. Only hark how he sighs. Come, come, Ferdinand, said Cade Rousseau. Hold your head and answer us. It's not polite to not reply to friends who ask of your health. My health is well enough, said Ferdinand, clenching his hands without raising his head. You see, Danglars, said Cade Rousseau, winking at his friend, this is how it is. Ferdinand, whom you see here, is a good and brave Catalan, one of the best fishermen in Marseille. And he is in love with a very fine girl named Mercedes. But it appears, unfortunately, that the fine girl is in love with the mate of the Farron, and the Farron has arrived today. Why, you understand? No, I don't understand, said Danglars. Poor Ferdinand has been dismissed, continued Caderousse. Well, what then? Said Ferdinand, lifting his head, looking at Caderousse like a man who is someone on whom he can vent his anger. Mercedes is not accountable to any person, is she? She's not free to love whomever she will. Oh, if you take it in that sense, said Caderousse, it's another thing. But I thought you were a Catalan, and they told me Catalans were not men to allow themselves to be supplanted by a rival. It was even told that Ferdinand especially was terrible in his vengeance. Ferdinand smiled piteously. A lover is never terrible, he said. Poor fellow, remarked Danglars, affected to the pity of the young man from the bottom of his heart. Why, you see, he is not expected to see Dante's return so suddenly. He thought he was dead, perhaps, or perchance faithless. These things always come on more severely when they come suddenly. Ah, ma foi, under any circumstances, said Caderousse, who drank as he spoke and on whom the fumes of wine began to take effect. Under any circumstances, Ferdinand is not the only person put out by the fortunate arrival of Dante, is he, Danglars? No, you're right. And as I should say, that would bring him ill luck. Whatever. Well, never mind, answered Caderousse, pouring out a glass of wine for Ferdinand and filling his own for the 8th or 9th time, while Danglars had merely sipped his. Never mind. In the meantime, he marries Mercedes, the lovely Mercedes. At least he returns to do that. During this time, Danglars fixed his piercing glance on the young man, on whose heart Caderousse's words fell like molten lead. And when is the wedding to be? He asked. Oh, it's not fixed yet, murmured Ferdinand. No, but it will be, said Caderousse. As surely as Dante's will be the captain of the Farron, eh, Danglars? Danglars shuddered with this unexpected attack, and he turned to Caderousse, whose countenance he scrutinized, to try and detect whether the blow was premeditated, but he read nothing but envy in the countenance already rendered brutal and stupid by drunkenness. Well, he said, filling his glass, let us drink to Captain Edmond Dantes, husband of the beautiful Catalan. Caderousse raised his glass to his mouth with unsteady hand and swallowed the contents at a gulp. Ferdinand dashed on the ground. Stammered Caderousse. What do I see down there by the wall, in the direction of the Catalans? Look, Ferdinand, your eyes are better than mine. I believe I see double. You know wine is a deceiver, but I say it was two lovers walking side by side, hand in hand. Heaven forgive me. They do not know we can see them, and they're actually embracing. Danglars did not lose one pang that Ferdinand endured. Do you know them, Ferdinand? He said. Yes, he replied with a low voice. It's Edmond and Mercedes. Oh, I see them now, said Caderousse, and I did not recognize them. Hallo, Dante. Hallo, lovely damsel. Come this way and let us know when the wedding is to be, for Ferdinand here is so obstinate he will not tell us. Hold your tongue, will you? Said Danglars, pretending to be restrained. Caderousse, who with tenacity of a drunkard leaned out the arbor, tried to stand upright and let the lovers make love without interruption. See, look at Ferdinand. Follow his example. He's so well behaved. Ferdinand, probably excited beyond bearing, pricked by Danglars as a bull is by the bandoliers, was about to rush out for he has risen out of his seat and seemed to be collecting himself to dash headlong upon his rival, when Mercedes, smiling and graceful, lifted up her lovely head and looked at them with her clear, bright eyes. At this, Ferdinand recollected her threat of dying if Edmund died, and dropped heavily in his seat again. Danglars looked at the two men, one after another, the one brutalized by liquor, and the one overwhelmed with love. I shall get nothing from these fools, he muttered, and I am very much afraid of being between a drunkard and a coward. Here is an envious fellow making himself boozy on wine when he ought to be nursing his wrath, and here is a fool who sees a woman he loves stolen from under his nose and takes on like a big baby. Yet this Catalan has eyes that glisten like those of a vengeful Spaniard, Sicilian, and Calabrians. And the other has fists big enough to crush an ox with one blow. Unquestionably, Edmund's star is the ascendant, and he will marry that splendid girl. He will be captain too, and laugh at us all unless a sinister smile passes over Danglars' lips. Unless I take a hand in the affair, he added. Hallo, continued Caderousse, half rising with his fist from the table. Hallo, Edmund. Do you not see your friends? Are you too proud to speak to them? No, my dear fellow, replied Dante. I am not proud, but I am happy, and happiness blinds. I think more than pride. Ah, very well. That's the explanation, said Caderousse. How do you do, Madame Dante? Mercedes curtsied gravely and said, That is not my name. And in my country it bodes ill fortune, they say, to call a young girl by the name of her betrothed before becoming her husband. So call me Mercedes, if you please. We must excuse our worthy neighbors, Caderousse, said Dante. He is so easily mistaken. So, then, the wedding is to take place immediately, Mr. Dante? Said Danglars, bowing to the young couple. As soon as possible, Mr. Danglars. Today, of all preliminaries, will be arranged by my fathers, and tomorrow or the next day at the latest, the wedding festival will be here at Le Reservoir. My friends will be there. I hope that is to say you are invited, Mr. Danglars, and Caderousse. And Ferdinand, said Caderousse with a chuckle. Ferdinand, too, is invited. My wife's brother is my brother, said Edmund, and we, Mercedes and I, should be very sorry if he were absent at such a time. Ferdinand opened his mouth to reply, but his voice died on his lips. He could not utter a single word. Today, the preliminaries. Tomorrow or the next day, the ceremony. You're in a hurry, Captain. Danglars, said Edmund, smiling. I will say to you as Mercedes said just now to Caderousse, do not give me the title which does not belong to me. That may bring bad luck. Your pardon, replied Danglars. I merely said you seem to be in a hurry and we have lots of time. The Farron can be under way in less than 3 months. We are always in a hurry to be happy, Mr. Danglars, for we have suffered a long time, and we have a great difficulty in believing in good fortune. But it is not selfishness alone that makes me thus in haste. I must go to Paris. Really? To Paris? And will it be your first time ever being there, Dantes? Yes. Have you business there? No, not of my own. The last commission of poor Captain Leclerc, you know, what I allude to, Danglars, is sacred. Besides, I should only take the time to go and return. Ah, yes, I understand, said Danglars, with a low tone, to add, to Paris, no doubt, to deliver a letter which the Grand Marshal he gave. Yes, that gives me an idea, a capital idea. Dante, my friend, you are not registered number 1 on board the good ship of the Farron. Then, turning towards Edmund, who's walking away, a pleasant journey, he cried. Thank you, said Edmund, with a friendly nod, and the two lovers continued on their way as calm and joyous as if they were very elect of heaven. And we will end on chapter 3. Finished. Begin chapter 4 next time. Thanks everybody for hanging out. And I'll see you next time. Have a good night.